The forge on the street of steel roared with a midday fury, every puff of the bellows releasing sparks that fell around the broad-shouldered boy who hammered bronze into the shape of antlers. Sweat rolled down his arms, slickening the leather of his gloves. He leaned into each strike with the stubborn rhythm of a drummer beating defiance into iron. When the heavy oak door swung inward and light spilled across the anvil, Gendry lifted his head in annoyance. Customers rarely came this hour, and the master armorer, Tabo Mat, would be deep in negotiations with high-born fools, bargaining for gilded plate they'd never soil in war. Gendry's annoyance flickered into baffled caution as the man who stepped inside was vastly larger, louder, and somehow more carnal than any lord he had imagined. Robert Baratheon filled the cramped workshop as though he were a storm pushed inside a flask by an uncaring god. He was draped in hunting leathers that smelled of pine and half-forgotten rain, and the deep blue doublet beneath bore the faint motes of dried blood, proof of a kill only hours old. His black beard was shot with threads of gray now, but those threads only made him seem the older wolf who could still tear out a younger rival's throat. Behind him stood two gold cloaks, blinking at the sudden heat. A page hovered with a waterskin, and Sir Barristan Selmy, white cloak immaculate, ducked beneath a hanging rack of half-finished breastplates and caught the kin's shoulder to steer him from a swath of molten slag puddling on the floor. Robert ignored all of them because his dark eyes had snared the boy's face and would not let go. "You," he rumbled, the single syllable like thunder under mountains. "How old are you?" Gendry straightened, wiping his brow with the back of one leather cuff. "Close on 15, Your Grace." The honorific came out rough. He had watched the clients bow and scrape, and he had practiced the words, but his tongue was used to counting rivets, not courtesies. Robert's eyes narrowed. Something ancient and pained passed behind them. Then it was gone, replaced by a flash of joy so fierce it seemed a sin. "Of course you are." He walked a slow circle round the boy. "Hammer fits your hand like a sword fits mine. See how the shaft settles between thumb and finger? That's no accident. Smell of the forge doesn't make you flinch." He inhaled. The smell of hot metal and charcoal smoke mingled with the faint sweetness of straw from the stables outside. "Aye, it's in you." Sir Barristan cleared his throat. "Your Grace, perhaps we should—" Robert raised one hand, and Barristan's words died. "What is your name, lad?" "Gendry." He startled at the strength of his own voice. "And your mother?" "Dead, or so the master says. She worked here once, mending kettle helms." A flicker of memory surfaced, a woman's calloused hand guiding his smaller fingers along the shape of a buckle, a laugh like chimes above the clang of iron. It hurt to remember. Robert asked no further. He knew. One look at the boy's pale blue eyes shadowed under thick brows, the black hair curling damp against his temples, the stubborn jaw, the broad shoulders that promised a giant's frame. Robert knew as surely as men know pain. The king closed both fists, exhaling like a smith who quells steel in oil. "Pack what you will. You're leaving with me." "No, Norn." Tabo Mat shuffled in from the long corridor, face paler than molten silver. He had sensed trouble long before the first royal step disturbed his shop. "Your Grace, the boy's an apprentice bound to me by crown charter." "Worth exactly what I decide," Robert barked. He tossed a fat leather purse. It thudded upon the workbench, gold spilling like eager fleas. "There, paid in full and thrice over. He rides for the Red Keep within the hour." Gendry stared at the roof beams. Leave the only life he'd ever known. Yet some thread of yearning tugged inside him, a string he never felt until that moment, as if the forge had always been a womb, but not a destiny. Robert's great hand fell upon his shoulder, absurdly gentle for its size. "You have questions, boy, I know." Then, so softly none but Gendry heard, "I have more answers than you'll ever want. But not here. Out there, beneath honest sky, where no walls have ears." No. W.I. Markdown. 1. Medusi Wushti. The ride up the hill of Rainies was a blur of sound and scent. Hooves clacking on cobble, the salt of the black water kissing the breeze, hawkers crying roasted chestnuts, and always the hush of the rumor growing behind them like a tide. The commoners recognized their king, but the presence of a peasant boy riding beside him, astride a gelding draped in Baratheon colors, made tongues wag. By the time they reached the Red Keep, the tale had traveled ahead. Some said the boy was a hostage, others a protege. Still others swore he was a new squire for the Kingsguard. At the stable arches, Renly Baratheon emerged wearing a lime velvet cloak and his habitual smile, though tonight it wavered. Brother, the council meets, and Grand Maester Pycelle grows purple that you miss 2 audiences. Robert swung down, pulling Gendry with him. Tell the council to wait. I have a son to settle. Renly's dark green eyes flicked to the boy's face. Recognition dawned. Gods help us, he whispered, voice pitched so low only Robert caught it. Gods had their chance, Robert replied. Now it's mine. Mark down. 1 2 Sure Dainu Mizi. Cersei sat upon the carved weirwood bench near the queen's ballroom, a place she favored because the sea breeze teased her golden hair, and she could gaze across Blackwater Bay without smelling the slums. When she heard Robert's boots echo along the marble colonnade, she folded her hands atop serene silks, the color of fresh roses, and prepared her smile. Robert often returned drunk, but tonight he strode with sober intent. Alone? No. There, half astride behind, padded a boy in plain wool, still wearing a smith's apron. She stood. You bring filth into my hall? Robert's laugh cracked the air. Even filth may shine when cleaned. He gestured. Kneel, boy. Gendry knelt, confusion etched with defiance. Robert drew a parchment from his belt, wax seal broken. I, Robert of House Baratheon, first of my name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, hereby adopt the boy called Gendry Waters, born of my blood. Under the name Gendry Baratheon, he shall hold precedence behind my sons and daughters, lawful. He shall be nourished, protected, and taught the ways of court and war, that he may serve the... A breath, signed this day in the 400th year after Aegon's landing. Cersei's color drained. You dare raise a bastard above my own sweet Joffrey? Robert's gaze was iron. I raise my son to his rightful place. Joffrey need fear nothing, unless he lacks faith in his own claim. None, sure, Tui. Her eyes blazed green wildfire. You shame me. I've done worse, he said, each word like chisels, but never have I been ashamed of my blood. Mark down. 1 Yumdaziri. In the small council chamber the next dawn, quills scratched furious notes. Lord Varys fluttered a lace fan, his smile wide and unreadable. Such delightful news, Your Grace. Truly, strengthening the royal line is the foundation of stability. Baelish smirked. Stability? I see Tempest. Lannisters seldom respond kindly to slights. Mernium, Pizarni. Omen. Stannis sat rigid, knuckles white upon the ebony table. This is madness, brother. Your living heir is a young, bringing a bastard to court. Robert slammed a fist that rattled inkpots. He is no longer bastard. He is Baratheon, and I'll hear no more quibbling. Pycelle coughed. Mayhaps a formal legitimization through the High Septon what? He is adopted. That is legitimization enough. The faith may bless it or choke on it. Renly leaned, voice smooth as oiled leather. The realm will whisper. Joffrey's golden hair is celebrated from Dorne to the Wall, while Gendry bears your own dark looks. People will draw comparisons. None, now, the youth choky. Robert's eyes gleamed. Let them. I have grown sick of pretty lies that pass for lineage. Mark down. Gone. That night, Gendry ate alone within a solar overlooking the sea. Roast capon he barely tasted, honeyed parsnips ignored. The velvet of his new doublet chafed like a chain. Servants bowed and called him my lord, but he felt no more lordly than he had at the anvil. When Ned Stark entered, a man Gendry recognized from gossip though never by sight, he rose too quickly, chair scraping sandstone. "Ease yourself," Ned said, gray eyes kind. "Royal court will flay you raw if you leap at every visitor." Gendry sank. "Why does the king do this to me? I never asked. My life was simple." Ned nodded. "Sometimes, lad, kings make storms with no thought to who must cling to wreckage. Robert loved your mother once, I think, in his way. This," he gestured to the room, the tapestries, the opal inlaid goblets. "This is his apology to ghosts." Gendry stared at the flicker of candles. "Will Queen Cersei try to hurt me?" Ned's hand rested on the boy's shoulder, steady, reassuring, heavy as the north. "Listen well. Do not provoke her pride, but neither shrink. Wear your heritage as plain as the heart's head upon your doublet. That honesty may yet save you." Mark down. Whoa. Only. On the third morning, the lords and ladies of King's Landing packed the cobbled courtyard to witness the formal presentation. Squires held banners snapping in the early breeze. The crowned stag of Baratheon, the lion of Lannister, the direwolf of Stark, the rose of Tyrell. Joffrey stood beside Cersei on a dais draped in crimson. His smile was thin, his fingers curled tight around the hilt of a practiced sword. Beside them, Myrcella wrung pale hands, while Tommen sniffled, bewildered by tension he could smell but not name. Robert emerged with Gendry at his side. The crowd gasped at the resemblance. Two stags cast in different seasons, one in summer's prime, the other springing into early antler. Heralds intoned titles, every voice echoed across ramparts. When silence fell, Robert raised his hands. "Behold the true measure of a king's seed," he declared. And though the words tried for pride, they carried sorrow too, for years wasted in wine and absence. "Gendry Baratheon will train with Master-at-Arms Sir Aaron Santagar, squire to Lord Renly's household, and sit in council to learn the burdens that rest upon shoulders broad as his." Murmurs swept outward. Joffrey's sneer rippled. "Does the realm meet new princes at the forge? Shall we scour Flea Bottom for siblings? Numyon, Tuyi." Laughter, brittle and nervous. Robert's smile vanished. "You forget yourself." His voice was low thunder. "His worth is in his metal, not his cradle." He clapped Gendry's shoulder, hard enough that the boy staggered a half step, but did not fall. "This one has metal to spare." Cersei spoke then, words slicing. "You risk war within your own house. The lords of the realm will question which son you favor." Robert's reply carried across banners. "Let them question. Let them gather their proofs and test them in plain day. I have no fear of truth. Now, please, mark down. Win, please." Within the Tower of the Hand, Ned Stark pressed sealing wax to a parchment. Maester Luwin's shorthand, redrafted by Ned's careful script, requests for records of bastards sired in the storm years of Robert's youth. He remembered Jon Arryn prying at the lineage of golden hair and bartered seed, and how quickly death had silenced him. Ned's gut chilled. If Robert now flaunted one son of unmistakable parentage, what would become of those whose hair shone too bright, too gold, to claim Baratheon blood? He sealed the letter and dispatched a raven north. If Balon Greyjoy could dream to rise again, if Tywin could marshal gold and steel, if the Targaryen girl still lived across the sea, then Westeros perched on the cusp of frantic tumult. And Robert, for all his raw ferocity, gambled with oaths older than Winterfell's foundations. Ned gazed out the arrow slit. Gendry trained in the yard below, wooden blade crashing against Sir Meryn Trant's shield. Each blow rang honest. The boy was raw stone, untouched by intrigue, sculpted by hardship. Yet, kingship devoured innocence. Ned whispered, "Gods old and new, grant him a better fate than most born of power." Mark down. 1 PUI. Dinim. 3 weeks passed in a blur of sharpened swords, whispered court scandals, and slow poison served in sweet goblets of gossip. Ravens flew hourly between Casterly Rock and the Red Keep, their wings beating time with the rising pulse of Lannister fury. Lord Tywin's replies burned with cold politeness, assurances of continued loyalty couched in veiled reminders of debts owed and armies ready. Robert shrugged them off, swigged from his warhorn cup, and belched defiance. But the small folk saw something else. In the markets, storytellers wove idle wonder. A black-haired prince risen from their ranks promised change. Mothers named newborn boys Gendry. Innkeepers painted antlers over tavern doors. The city hummed with dangerous hope. Varys watched from shadow, plump hands steepled. When the winds shift, he murmured to himself, even the spiders must weave a new web. Mark down. 1. Nguyen, Wadiwadzi. Cersei's strategy emerged like venom in honey. She invited lords to feasts where wine flowed, ensuring each goblet stung the tongue just enough for courage. There she spoke of ancient Targaryen madness, of bastards raised to crowns, of the chaos that followed Maegor's reign. "A realm divided is a realm bleeding," she whispered to Lord Giles, to Lady Tanda, to half a dozen others around a bright hearth. "Joffrey is the eldest, lawful and certain. The king's sudden fancy for this black-haired cudgel undermines us all." Her listeners nodded, warmed by wine and fear. One night she approached Stannis in the torch gallery, where flickering flames made their faces masks of amber and smoke. "Your brother insults the throne," she said, voice as sharp as carving knives. "You, Lord Stannis, should be heir unquestioned after Joffrey. Yet this adoption confuses the line. Help me ask the High Septon to annul this folly." Stannis' jaw clenched. "The king may recognize any child. It is his right." "No way," she was so naive. "Even when that right endangers the succession." His silence was answer enough. Cersei smiled with no joy. "Think on it." Mark down. 1 Tigani. Kimshi. Gendry's new world crashed in gales of parchment and steel. On he ran the mile to the mud gate and back in full mail, lungs searing. Midday he sparred till knuckles split, then soaked in icy cisterns to numb bruises. Evenings he sat with Maester Pylos over histories of Aegon's conquest, struggling to keep ink from smearing under his restless fingers. At night he lay on feather mattresses that swallowed him and wondered why softness felt like a trap. Yet amid the whirlwind, he found friends. Tommen shyly asked for lessons in the yard. Myrcella showed him which forks to use and giggled when he practiced court bows. Even Arya Stark, visiting with her father, dragged him to see her direwolf pups and declared him not nearly as stupid as a prince should be. The only one who shunned him was Joffrey. In council galleries, the blonde prince would study Gendry as a boy studies a snake, fascinated yet afraid. Gendry felt the heat of that gaze, but tried to ignore it. Life in a forge had taught him not to touch metal heated beyond red. Mark down. 1 Newt. Shoe. Damus. In quiet corridors, whispers knotted into cords strong enough to strangle. Some said Robert meant to set aside his queen and wed the boy's mother posthumously, legitimizing Gendry above all. Others claimed Stannis, and Renly plotted to remove both Joffrey and Gendry, clearing their own path. A few wild tongues even murmured the return of Rhaegar's son. Aegon, thought dead. ready to ally with the discontented. The air smelt of crossroads after rain, every path mud-slick, every puddle reflecting uncertain sky. Within the God's Wood, beneath buds of early summer, Ned met Robert. They stood amid ancient weirwoods, whose red leaves whispered blood secrets. "Have you weighed the cost?" Ned asked. "You mean the cost of truth?" Robert tugged at a long blade of grass. "I'm tired of living lies, Ned. Tired of waking each dawn to a queen who despises me, and sons who—" He stopped, voice breaking. "I see my father's face in the mirror, and know he died proud of his bloodline. What of me?" Ned placed a hand on Robert's arm. "I remind you as friend, pride of blood is a blade. Grip too tight and it cuts the hand that holds it." Robert's laugh was hollow. "It's already bleeding, old friend. But this time, I will not bandage it with silence. Mark down. When do not she's gem away." Far to the west, at Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister paced the length of a balcony overlooking the sunlit sea. Ravens nested in dovercoats behind him, their wings rustling. Beside him stood Jaime, golden hair caught in the breeze. "Our king grows reckless," Tywin said. His voice, low and steady, carried doom like an undertow. "An open bastard at court undermines every pact we forged through marriage." Jaime shrugged one shoulder. "Robert always had bastards. Now he feeds one sweetmeats instead of coin. That is the only difference. Difference enough to threaten the throne." Tywin paused. "You will ride for King's Landing within the week. Cersei needs counsel, and the boy prince must be reminded of poise." "No. Jaime's laugh rang bright as hammered gold. "Remind the boy to be poised? I, the assassin knight who slew a king." Tywin's gaze was stone. "You are King's guard. You will protect Joffrey from his father's whims, and from the bastard's rising star. Do not fail me." Jaime saluted with 2 fingers and walked away whistling, but inside his chest something tightened. Was it dread, or the thrill of another battlefield without banners? Mark down. Wondern. Ice. Spring's warmth seeped into the capital. With it came sails from Old Town, Gulltown, Sunspear, lords curious to glimpse the king's newfound son. Tournaments sprouted like flowers, hedge knights eager to tilt before royalty, poets composing verses of the dark-haired mystery prince. Merchants minted copper tokens bearing stag on one side and anvil on the other, selling them as good luck charms. Robert basked in the fervor. He ordered a melee on the Dragon Pit grounds, prize purse richer than the treasury could afford. "Let them test my boy's courage," he declared, slapping Gendry's back so hard the lad coughed. "Nothing tempers loyalty like sweat and blood." Gendry entered the lists armed with simple steel, no ornament beyond a stag-engraved breastplate. He fought 6 bouts against a sellsword twice his age, a knight of House Kai famed for speed, even a Braavosi water dancer wielding twin blades. Each time he won through grit, parrying with raw strength, taking wounds he barely felt, hammering until opponents yielded. When the horn sounded his final victory, the crowd's roar engulfed the old ruins like surf in a cavern. Yet as Maester stitched his forearm, he met Joffrey's glare from the royal pavilion. The prince's jealousy was no longer fear, but ice. Mark down. William. Oh, that same dusk, in a shuttered chamber perfumed by myrrh, Cersei met Lord Petier Baelish. She poured wine, her emerald eyes reflecting candle flame. A son sprung from gutter rags. "If Robert names him heir after Joffrey, our house is undone." Baelish twirled the cup. "Your Grace, unexpected heirs may disappear as swiftly as they arrive. A slip from a horse, a sweetheart with a jealous brother, an unfortunate infection." Cersei's lips thinned. "No. Too blunt. Robert would suspect, the realm would pity, and Joffrey's crown would forever glisten with guilt. I need something cleaner." something that condemns itself. Baelish's smile widened. Then, perhaps truth shall suffice. Explain. Inquiry into lineages, perhaps. Rumor that Robert's seed was spent long before the boy was conceived. Questions about whether he is even Baratheon blood. He leaned closer. If enough tongues doubt, legitimacy wilts. No murder required, only doubt. Cersei sipped. Plant your seeds, Littlefinger. Water them with coin and secrets. I want the sprout of suspicion growing long before winter. He bowed. Consider the garden tended. Mark down. Wonders out in you. Oh. Down in Flea Bottom, a quiet panic kindled. The gold cloaks began rounding up smiths who had worked with Gendry's late mother, men and women who might recall dates, names, whispers of betting. Some vanished into dungeons and did not return. Rumor said Queen's men sought proof the boy was fathered by another, and they meant to fabricate if they could not find. Tabhomat closed his forge 3 days running, claiming illness, though his apprentice knew he burned evidence, ledgers, letters, anything that linked the boy to Robert beyond doubt. Fear, like smoke, coiled from every alley. One night, a pair of cloaked figures arrived at Mott's shuttered door. They spoke softly, exchanging gold for silence. They left with a small vial of soot-gray ashes, the remnants of a ribbon said to have belonged to Gendry's mother, embroidered with the crowned stag in golden thread. In the wrong hands, ashes could become an absence shaped as a lie. Mark down. 1. Shh. Kaonin. Gendry felt the tension gathering in ways a blacksmith knows weather. Changes in the taste of air, in the stillness of birds. He watched courtiers bow lower when Cersei passed, yet laugh louder when Robert jested. He saw scrolls exchanged behind fans, guards replaced at halls without explanation. In the training yard, Joffrey refused to spar, insisting sickness, yet he practiced at dawn alone, cutting straw dummies until straw resembled bleeding flesh. One afternoon, as Gendry removed greaves after drill, Sansa Stark approached, her auburn hair curled like fire under blue ribbons. She hesitated, then curtsied. "My lord, they say you will be knighted soon." He shrugged, wiping sweat from his brow. "I'd rather earn that with deeds, not whispers." Sansa smiled shyly. "Sir Gendry Baratheon," she tried to sound, "protector of the forge." Her eyes brightened. "That would make a lovely song." He laughed, surprised. "Songs need heroes, Lady Sansa, not bastards in borrowed silk." She blushed. "Heroes are made, not born. My father says so." She leaned closer. "Beware the Queen's grace. Roses bloom where she treads, but thorns wake beneath them." Before he could answer, Septa Mordain called her away. Gendry watched her go, more confused than before. "Mark down." Round she was. Storm clouds gathered beyond the city, literal and political. A raven arrived from Dragonstone. Stannis had sailed west without explanation, galleys laden. Another bird from Sunspear reported that Prince Doran had strengthened ties with House Martell's captains, citing unrest in King's Landing. Across the narrow sea, whispers of Viserys Targaryen's death filtered back, slain by his own mercenaries. And now Daenerys mothered a dragonless dream, with only a Dothraki remnant. The world shifted as tectonic plates, grinding truths into sand. On the 4th moon of Robert's proclamation, the High Septon issued an edict. Adoptions that alter the line of succession require blessing by the faith. Without it, the act stands but lacks divine sanction. Cersei's courtiers hailed the ruling as celestial wisdom. Robert laughed, wine through his nose, and told them to bugger themselves with a crozier. Still, doubts sprouted. Septons preached of sacred lineage. Mothers whispered of ill-omened stars. the night Gendry was born, and coin-fed criers spread word that the boy's mother once dallied with a sellsword of Bravos. Doubt, Baelish promised, needed only patience. Mark down. One promise. Then came the tilt. Only at Maidenpool was announced. Prize a masterworked Valyrian sword. Robert insisted Gendry compete. To show the world my son faces spears as readily as I once did. Gendry obeyed, though his stomach churned. The journey east through muddy roads, lined with peasants eager to shout blessings, felt like marching to judgment. At Maidenpool's field, banners flapped against a sky bruised with early storm. Joffrey rode too, pale armor blazing like a fallen star. Fate arranged the draws. Gendry versus Joffrey in the first tilt. Betting changed hands faster than ravens fly. Whispers said the prince's lance was hardened ash tipped with steel. The Baratheon's only common pine. When horns blared, horses broke into thunder. Gendry lowered his shield, remembering the beat of hammer on anvil, the heft of bronze antlers he once shaped. Joffrey leaned forward, thin lips peeled in a snarl. Halfway down the list, lightning forked behind the hills. Impact. Gendry's lance struck Joffrey's shield center mass, wood splintering. Joffrey's point glanced off Gendry's helm, spark spraying. Both riders reeled, but only one seat held. Joffrey hit the ground, gold armor clanging. The crowd gasped. As Gendry circled back, he expected cheers, but silence reigned. Knights of the Kingsguard rushed to lift the prince. Joffrey's eyes were pools of hatred. Blood trickled from his lip, where he'd bitten flesh inside. He tore free of Ser Boros' grip and screamed, "This is treason." Gendry reined to a halt. "It was sport, your grace." "Treason," Joffrey repeated, voice cracking. "You mean to kill me, all of you." He pointed at Robert on the terrace. "Even you, father, favor him." Robert's face darkened, yet before he spoke, Cersei pressed a hand to Joffrey's shoulder. "My sweet king," she whispered loud enough for all. "Fear not, justice will prevail." She turned to the stands. "This travesty ends now. I call upon the High Septon to judge the legitimacy of this so-called prince. Let him swear upon the Seven's holy oil, or be cast out as the impostor he is." Gasps. Robert rose, fury boiling. "You overstep." But the High Septon had already stepped forward, voice grave. "The faith hears Queen Cersei's plea. We shall convene a tribunal in 7 days to discern the truth." So the gauntlet lay. Gendry felt the weight of eyes. Love, hate, envy. All at once. He bowed his head to Robert. The king descended, wrapping an arm around the boy. "Stand tall, son," Robert whispered fiercely. "We weather storms." Above them, thunder answered, and the first hard drops of rain began to fall. Mark down. 1. She. 7 days to gather proof. 7 days to craft lies. Ravens flew like locusts. Tywin arrived with 500 men in red cloaks. Not enough for war, but enough for threat. Storm's End sent envoys bearing ledgers of Baratheon births, though none mentioned Gendry. From Winterfell came letters sealed in grey wax, urging patience, but patience now weighed less than gold and smelled of death. Baelish worked his networks, placing gamblers' odds on verdicts. Varys listened, little birds flitting with snippets of songs about bastards crowned. Renly gathered loyal reach lords, murmuring of alternative successions. Stannis was conspicuous by absence. Ned Stark rode nightly to the Street of Steel, disguised as a merchant, seeking those who had known Gendry's mother. He found a midwife, shriveled as an old apple, who swore the babe had entered the world with a storm's roar, and hair black as crow. But proof, records burned, witnesses gone. Truth dissolved like salt in water. Mark down. 1. Shh. The tribunal convened within the great sept of Baelor, candles countless, their flames trembling in suspicion as much as draft. Cersei wore a gown of leonine gold, hair piled in a crown around a ruby circlet. Joffrey sat beside her, armored though peace reigned, as if steel alone could stiffen a spine. Robert entered in plain stag-stitched doublet, no crown, yet the hall bowed to his gravity. Gendry followed, cheeks pale, chin high. 7 high judges sat robed. At their center, the septon intoned charges, doubts unto lineage, claims of unlawful adoption, potential usurpation of rightful heir. Words echoed, each a stone cast into still water. Cersei called first witness, a sworn brother of the city watch who claimed Gendry's mother once lay with a sellsword bearing crows upon his surcoat. Under wine and coin, he swore it thrice. Next came a seamstress, stating she embroidered twin stags that were later torn away, meaning the boy's father had second thoughts, each tale chipped at image of certainty. Then Ned Stark requested leave to speak. He strode before the judges, lean and stern. I knew Robert Baratheon in youth, he began, voice carrying. Knew his humor, his passions, his weaknesses. He cast seed abundant in those reckless days, but never denied it when confronted. He turned to Robert. Do you deny this boy? Robert rose. No. The word thundered. Ned faced the court again. In place of parchment, I offer living testament. Look upon them. He beckoned Gendry to stand at Robert's side. The same jaw, the same eyes. Traits run true as rivers. The gods paint their children plainly. Cersei laughed, brittle. I might paint a horse yellow and call it a lion. That would not make it roar. Ned's gaze hardened. Even painted gold, it would nicker as a horse. This boy's blood cannot be gilded away. The judges conferred. Hours passed, incense thickening until lungs burned. Finally, the High Septon stood. The faith finds no sin in a king acknowledging his get, he pronounced. Yet adoption alone cannot place a child in line for the Iron Throne ahead of those born from lawful marriage. He nodded to Robert. Your Grace, we affirm the boy as Baratheon in name and honor, but should royal succession fall, his claim ranks after Prince Joffrey, Princess Myrcella, and Prince Tommen. A pause. Do you accept? Robert's chest rose. I accept. Cersei's smile bloomed triumphant, then faltered as Robert added, but Gendry remains my son, and any harm against him I shall repay thrice. Joffrey glared, sensing defeat in victory. Mark down. Wonder year. Piece of a sort. Returned. Gendry resumed training, though rumors hounded him like hungry curs. Some knights snubbed him. Others courted his favor in case fortunes shifted again. The realm simmered, not boiling, yet aware of heat below. One dusk, Gendry climbed the tall stone steps of the White Tower. At the top waited Robert, gazing over the city where torches twinkled like fallen stars. The smell of roasting boar drifted faintly. Gendry cleared his throat. You wanted me, father. Robert turned, sadness carved into worn lines. You hear them calling you a fraud. Yes, they once called me usurper, still do some. Truth is wind, blows one way, then the other. But blood remains. He placed a hand on Gendry's heart. Feel that? Beats like mine. We are storms. We break things and forge others in our wake. Gendry swallowed. If your queen plots against me, she plots against anyone not spun of her thread. Robert sighed. But I've weathered her 10 and 8 years. You'll weather her too. He squeezed the boy's shoulder. Mayhap you'll do it better than I. Lightning flickered distantly, spider webbing the clouds. Mark down. 1. Nui. Far across the sea, on a hot night in Korth, Daenerys Targaryen dreamed of 3 dragons screaming over a city with red walls. In the dream, a black-haired youth knelt as a crowned stag bled at his feet, and a golden boy wept upon a throne of swords. Fire split the sky, and in its roar she heard a name. Gendry. She woke with flame in her eyes and whispered, "The game changes. Mark down. 1 to Joust." Back in King's Landing, Varys crept along hidden passages to the chamber of small council. There, Renly and Baelish argued over grain stores. Pycelle slept over a ledger. Varys cleared his throat. "Wars are seated in rumor," he intoned softly, "but harvested by swords." They turned. He smiled, all innocence. "Tell me, my lords, when the harvest begins, whose corn will feed the crows?" No answer came. In silence, each felt the stir of wings overhead. Mark down. 1 no, Shiwan Saukai. Thus the summer waned. The boy of the forge bore a prince's name, yet walked among blades unsheathed by love and hate alike. The king brandished paternal pride as a shield, the queen sharpened whispers into daggers, and the realm held its breath. Somewhere beyond vision, winter gathered armies of snow, and dragons stirred in dust, and hearts across the 7 kingdoms beat a little faster, sensing the tremor of change. In the Red Keep, under candlelight's dying glow, Gendry sat before an anvil newly placed in his chamber. With careful strokes, he shaped a small iron stag, not larger than a thumb, its antlers wide in challenge. When at last he quenched it in oil, the metal hissed like prophecy. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying the scent of storm and smoke, and destiny yet unmade. Yonon, she. The Red Keep sweltered beneath a midsummer sun, heat shimmering along its redstone walls, until even the shadows felt scorched and sullen. Down in the practice yard, the clang of steel struck the air like distant thunder, but the courtiers who watched from shaded galleries fanned themselves more from dread than warmth. There, in a ring of trampled sand, Gendry Baratheon matched blows with Sir Aeron Santagar's best pupil, a lithe reach-born knight named Sir Ryman Cordwainer, whose silver falcon helm glimmered with each feint. Steel hissed, sparks flew, and sweat stung Gendry's eyes, yet he pressed the tempo with the same stubborn rhythm that had once driven hammer into glowing iron. Sir Ryman fought beautifully, fluid, precise, but beauty cracked when confronted by raw force. Gendry's downward cut jarred the knight's guard aside. A shoulder slam sent the falcon helm pitching backward. Ryman sprawled, choking dust, and rolled away before Gendry's practice blade whistled down to thud where his head had been. Paws fluttered from the gallery. Lord Renly's bright laugh, Sir Loras Tyrell's admiring clap, even Harry Swift's hesitant cheer. But the sound that mattered came from above. A single slow strike of palm on oak. As King Robert rapped a rail in approval, Gendry lifted his sword in salute, chest heaving. The king's grin, wide as a midsummer moon, answered pride for pride. Joffrey watched from beside his mother, face as impassive as a sheet of freshly forged steel, but his knuckles blanched upon the railing. When Sir Ryman rose, bruised yet whole, Joffrey tossed his goblet toward the yard, crimson wine splashing across sand. "If this were real steel," he drawled, voice pitched to Carrie, "the bastard would have gutted you like a trout. Our tourney champion felled by a blacksmith's brat. What shame for the Reach." Sir Loras opened his mouth, anger bright in green eyes, but Renly touched his arm. The tension settled like a sword upon a whetstone. Gendry let his practiced blade drop to his side and stared up at the prince. Cool wind stirred banners overhead. Below, all seemed stifled and still. Steel or lath makes no matter, your grace, Gendry said, loud enough for the onlookers. A knight's worth is measured in courage, and Sir Rymon's courage stands. A murmur of approval rippled outward, gentle, yet unmistakable. Joffrey's lip curled. Spare me the blacksmith's sermons. Go mend horseshoes. He turned, flinging his cloak in a dramatic swirl, and strode away with guards scrambling to follow. Cersei glided after him, smiling as if the entire scene amused her. Robert bellowed for ale and descended the stairs 2 at a time, arms slung around Sir Barristan's shoulders. "That lad of mine fights like a mailed boar, eh?" he told the Lord Commander. "One day he'll smash knights to paste and drink the marrow." Barristan's silver brows rose. "Pity the knights. Pity the world," Robert corrected. Then called to Gendry. "Wash, boy, and join me. We feast tonight in honor of your medal." Gendry bowed. As he walked toward the armory, Arya Stark's wiry shape dropped from a balcony rail to fall in step beside him, dirt-smudged and grinning. She wore breeches, a linen jerkin, and an expression of unrepentant delight. "You should have clouted his royal arse," Arya said. "Imagine the look on his stupid lion face." Gendry chuckled despite the ache in his ribs. "I'd lose more than practice privileges. He'd lose teeth. Worth it." She yanked off her glove and flexed calloused fingers. "Tomorrow, I'm stealing a spear from the rack. I want to go at Sir Ryman. You ever think of rest?" "My list is long," she muttered, eyes clouding, then brightened. "Besides, swords are lighter than sewing needles." She gave him a push toward the bathhouse. "Go clean up, Sir Anvil. You smell like burnt bacon." "None, Shirley Dewey, Tadvis." That night, long trestle tables crowded the great hall with platters of honeyed duck, spiced boar ribs, and wheels of sharp green cheese from the Vale. Roaring hearths battled the evening air, though outside the sky shimmered scarlet and gold as the sun sank beyond the black water. Minstrels plucked at lutes, singing of Azor Ahai and brave Durrang Godsgrief, but conversation droned louder than strings. Gendry sat 3 seats below Lord Renly, across from Maester Pylos, who gently quizzed the boy on the lineage of the Durandons between bites of trout. Gendry stumbled through names: Argilac the Arrogant, then Duran the Devout, and felt sweat bead again, this time from nerves instead of heat. He sensed eyes on him. Knights curious, ladies intrigued, envoys judging. The weight gnawed his appetite. At the dais, Robert drained his horn and roared for more, beard dripping froth. Beside him, Cersei raised her own cup, but sipped sparingly, emerald gaze flicking between her husband and their children, like a cat measuring leaps. Joffrey poked at a slice of lemon cake, ignoring the jesters who capered for him. Myrcella whispered with Sansa Stark. Tommen fought sleep, chin bobbing. As the 4th course arrived, a monstrous suckling pig stuffed with apricots. Sir Jaime Lannister entered in white cloak and golden armor, hair gleaming in torchlight. Conversation dimmed. Jaime bowed with lazy grace. "Your Grace, I beg pardon for my tardiness. Duty kept me abed." Robert laughed. "Bed is a noble duty when a woman shares it, Kingslayer." Jaime's lips twitched. This time the bed contained scrolls from the Master of Coin, almost as demanding. He turned, eyes finding Gendry. For a breath, there was no mirth, only keen appraisal. Then the smile returned, bright as polished brass, and he claimed an empty chair near the boy. "First they call you Prince," Jaime murmured, carving a slice of pork. "Now they seat you amongst lords. Doesn't take long for the forge smoke to wash off." Gendry's face heated. "Smoke never leaves steel, sir." "True." Jaime handed the slice across the table, with deliberate courtesy, and lowered his voice. "Beware those who seek to melt you. Even the hottest fire can warp given time." Renly leaned around Pylos. "Sir Jaime, Are you preaching virtue? Perish the thought. Jaime winked, spearing an apricot. Later, as candles guttered low and revelers staggered towards solar and bedchamber, Gendry lingered in the yard's cool dark. Torches haloed training posts. Distant waves slapped the quay. He breathed deep, savoring tar and brine. For a moment, he missed the street of steel, the honest clamor, the simple hierarchy of hammer and heat. Here, every word bore hidden edges. Footsteps scuffed stone. Ned Stark emerged, gray cloak blending with night. Couldn't sleep? Not yet, my lord. Ned folded arms. I watched your bout. Good balance. But strength alone won't save you in court. I know. Ned studied him. Do you? No. A pause. Robert means well, but his love is a tempest. Stand in the eye, and you're safe. Step a pace sideways, and the wind tears you apart. Gendry picked at a splinter on the railing. Should I refuse his favor? No. Ned answered softly. Take it. Shape it as you would iron, but temper it with your own judgment. He rested a hand on the boy's shoulder, firm. When I was young, Robert saved my sister's honor, or so we believed. I've since learned honor can be a blade without a hilt. Trust yourself. Trust those who earn it. Few others. I trust you. Ned's mouth tightened in something like pain. Then heed my warning. Night grows darker. Keep your hammer near. Across the city, in a shuttered room above the sailor's rest, Petyr Baelish tossed a bone die onto a velvet map dotted with ivory stones. Varys sat opposite, candles reflecting in his eyes like twin moons. The Dornish piece moves, Baelish said, sliding a stone toward Blackhaven. They've dispatched a sandship host beneath Lord Alaria's banner. Varys fluttered an iridescent fan. To honor a trading alliance, no doubt. Nothing says trade like spears. Baelish replied. And what of Dragonstone? Still no raven from Stannis. None. Tori, Tuins. Varys sighed theatrically. Our Lord of Storm's End has retreated deeper into silence than a septon after midnight prayers. Silence grows seeds, Baelish mused. Some sprout applause, others arrows. He picked up the die. And our young black-haired stag, how fares he? Beloved by small folk, envied by squires, feared by gilded youth. The perfect storm. Baelish rolled the die again, sixth. He smiled, thin as a garrote. Time to wager higher. Over the next moons, rumors became talons. Thingor was found dead in Flea Bottom, throat opened ear to ear. He had penned verses praising Gendry of the Anvil Heart as true son of Robert and rightful protector of the poor. A baker who sold stag-shaped sweet rolls vanished after gold cloaks raided her stall. One evening, Gendry returned from sword drill to find his chamber door ajar. Inside, nothing disturbed. Only a single lion's tooth pendant left atop his pillow. He threw it into the brazier, watched gold melt like poison. At council, Pycelle droned of grain shortages. Baelish suggested tariffs. Varys warned of red priests preaching in the alleys. Through it all, Robert hammered at decisions with ale-soaked impatience, while Cersei sat gleaming and silent. Her eyes, Ned noted, flickered each time Gendry's name passed lips. One morning, a raven from the Eyrie brought grave tidings. Jon Arryn's last squire, Sir Hugh of the Vale, died suddenly in tourney practice, lance splinter driving into his throat. The trident's spray seemed to haunt every report. Ned excused himself, walking the airy bridge that overlooked Blackwater Rush, thoughts circling. Jon Arryn's death, bastard studied, and now the realm in hushes of revolt. Threads wove into a tapestry he feared to picture. The first open blow fell during a hunting party beyond the Kingswood. Robert chased a massive white boar with Renly and half the court galloping behind. Gendry, assigned his page to carry javelins, spurred hard. The boar burst from thorn scrub, eyes wild, tusks red with sap. Robert loosed a spear that grazed its flank. The animal screamed and wheeled. Sudden hoofbeats thundered behind Gendry. He looked back. Too late. A mailed shoulder slammed him sideways. He tumbled, struck earth, rolled beneath brush. His horse bolted. As stars cleared from his vision, he saw Ser Boros Blount lurch past, reins twitching. Pain throbbed in his arm. He rose unsteadily, heard more horns, and hurried toward the king's voice. Through low branches, he glimpsed Robert and Renly dismounted. Boar, now cornered against a limestone outcrop. Gendry burst from cover just as the beast charged Robert. The king's next spear had broken. His long knife hung tangled in belt. Gendry flung himself between tusks and man, ramming his own javelin down the boar's throat. The shaft snapped, but point lodged deep. Boar and boy crashed in a heap. Renly's sword finished the beast in a gout of gore. When they pulled the carcass aside, Robert hauled Gendry to his feet. Blood gushed from a rip in the boy's shoulder, but his eyes shone bright. "You Robert boomed, voice shaking. "Brave, bloody fool." He wrapped Gendry in a bear hug despite the gore. "You saved your king." Renly, panting, looked back toward the trees where Boros had disappeared. His brow furrowed. "Strange tumble," he muttered. "Blount rides like a drunkard, but not so clumsy." That night in the royal pavilion, Maester stitched Gendry's flesh, while Robert paced like a caged direwolf. "Blount will answer," he swore. Yet by sunrise Ser Boros claimed he had swerved to avoid low branches, lost control. The Kingsguard brothers vouched for his tale, though their eyes slipped aside when Robert's gaze burned them. In small council, Cersei spoke first. "Accidents happen, my love. Do not punish loyal men for misfortune." Robert's jaw worked, but Ned caught his sleeve. "The forest is treacherous," Ned agreed. "And wounds fresh, let tempers cool." Reluctantly, Robert let the matter lie. But the forge of suspicion grew hotter. Gendry's recovery kept him to a sickbed for 9 days, shoulder bound tight, fever sweat soaking linen. On the 7th night he woke to find Joffrey standing at the foot of the bed. The prince held a candle that threw long claws of shadow on the walls. "I wanted to see the hero," Joffrey said softly. "Hero of the hunt." Gendry pushed himself upright, pain flaring. "No hero, just unlucky." Joffrey's smile was thin as wire. "Unlucky indeed. Imagine if the boar's tusks slipped past your spear, past your ribs, you'd be the new martyr of Flea Bottom, and father would carve statues. Nanin Tazi Tasorn." Gendry's mouth went dry. "Is that what you hope?" "I hope for peace," Joffrey answered, every syllable honeyed, "which requires certain removals." He set the candle on a stool, leaned closer, green eyes burning. "You savor praise now, but hearts are fickle. When they turn, they will turn with knives. Remember that." He straightened, extinguished the candle between thumb and forefinger, and slipped from the chamber. Gendry lay in darkness, pulse hammering louder than the forgotten forge. Autumn came early, crisp wind rattling the lemon trees in the Queen's garden. Ravens flocked south, black punctuation against pale sky. In the great hall, the Iron Throne loomed icily indifferent as counselors droned of harvest tallies. Robert sat restless upon its steps, rather than the throne itself, legs spread, elbow braced on knee. Gendry, arm still bound but healing, stood behind his father's right shoulder like a loyal squire. Lord Tywin arrived unannounced at noon, retinue clanking with lion banners. The hall parted like cloth before sword edge. Tywin bowed curtly. "Your Grace." "Lord Tywin," Robert said, voice neutral. "I come to mend rifts." Tywin's gaze flicked toward Gendry. A realm fractured by rumor cannot endure. Robert grunted. Rumor or ambition? Tywin's pale green stare held steady. My ambition aligns with the crown's stability. I propose a marriage. Lord Tyrion to Lady Arya Stark, uniting North and West, dissipating talk of succession. Gasps rose. Ned stiffened. Arya, perched on a bench, choked on a grape. Tyrion himself looked thunderstruck, but quickly masked it behind a polite nod. Robert leaned back, expression unreadable. A clever net, yet nets rarely hold storms. Tywin's lips pressed thin. If storms tear the nets, they drown fishermen too. The threat hung unsheathed. Cersei smiled slightly. Ned stepped forward. Lady Arya is 9. Too young for betrothal without her father's consent. Then consent, Tywin said. Robert lifted a hand. Enough. We will speak of betrothals when the girl bleeds. For now, the matter rests. He stood, voice booming across stone. Rifts mend through loyalty, not commerce. Show me loyalty, Lord Tywin, and the realm will follow. Tywin bowed again, but his eyes were knives. As he turned, his cloak brushed Gendry's leg. Cold, heavy, whispering. That night, Gendry dreamed of the forge. He stood before the anvil, hammer poised, but the iron upon the block was no blade. It was a crown half-shaped, spikes twisted, metal glowing white. Each strike rang like a heartbeat. With every blow, the crown warped, stretching antlers into swords, swords into bars, bars into an iron mask that bore Joffrey's smirk. Sweat poured. He struck harder. Sparks flew, transforming into lions mid-air, roaring before fading. He swung until the mask shattered, fragments scattering like falling stars. In their place lay only a single black feather. He woke, drenched. Dawn's first light seeped through shutters. On the sill rested a raven. Real, not imagined, watching him with oil-slick eyes. A message tube bound to its leg held Ned Stark's seal. Ned's summons brought Gendry to the crypt beneath the Hand's Tower, where torches spit dull orange shadows across dusty king's books. Ned unrolled maps on a stone table, fingers tracing river routes. Lord Stannis has sailed north, Ned said. Reports put his galleys near Gulltown, gathering sell sails. Some claim he prepares proclamation naming your brother and sister, Joffrey and Myrcella, illegitimate. Gendry swallowed. Because their hair is not black. Ned folded arms. Stannis charges that Cersei's children are born of incest with Sir Jaime. It is why Jon Arryn died, I suspect. He met the boy's gaze. If this breaks, war will follow. Robert will defend his crown. The Lannisters will defend theirs. Stannis will claim justice. Gendry rubbed his bandaged shoulder. In the crossfire, Dort, or on the anvil. Ned offered a roll of parchment. Within is proof Stannis intends to reveal. Household lineages, hair colors, septon records. Meticulous. If it reaches the High Septon, the faith will question every heir in the Red Keep. Gendry shook his head. Give it to the king. I will, but first you must read. I can trust you, Gendry answered. That is enough. Ned's eyes softened. Trust me then to warn. If truth emerges, Cersei may act. Quickly, violently. Protect yourself. Protect the king if you can. Gendry nodded. I will. As he left, Ned Stark's voice echoed. Steel is strongest after quench, but brittle too. Remember to temper, lad. 3 days later, Robert rode for the Kingswood again. This time a smaller party, meant for quiet respite. Ned urged delay, but Robert scoffed. I'll not hide in my own city, like a hen in a fox's dreams. Gendry insisted on accompanying. Robert allowed it grudgingly. The dawn air tasted of sap and promise. Dew glittered on spider webs. They rode deeper than before, only Sir Barristan and Lancel Lannister as cupbearer trailing. At midday they paused near a brook. Lancel fetched wineskins, poured strong wine mixed with honey. Robert drank deep twice. Gendry, thirsty, accepted a swallow. Bitter undertaste coated his tongue. Moments later the king swayed, eyes glassy. Strange vintage, he muttered. Gendry's vines burned, head spun. Across the clearing, two shadows appeared. Archers in mottled cloaks. One loosed. The arrow hissed toward Robert. Gendry, instinct screaming, lunged, shoved the king aside. The shaft sank into Gendry's ribs. He staggered, pain blossoming like molten lead. Sir Barristan shouted, blade flashing. Lancel dropped the wineskin, face white. Robert, drunkenly slow, fumbled for his axe. Gendry ripped the arrow free with a wet grunt, leveraged tree trunk for balance. Another arrow sang past his ear. He hefted a fallen branch, charged the nearest archer. The assailant cursed, drawing dagger, but Gendry's swing broke collarbone. Follow through cracked skull. The second archer fled. Barristan pursued, swift as sin. Robert knelt by Gendry, horror dawning through haze. Wine dripped from the king's beard onto the boy's blood. Hold fast, son, he pleaded. Master's will. Gendry's vision tunneled. Lancel hovered, trembling. It was the wine, Gendry croaked. Poison makes limbs like water. Robert roared at Lancel. What? Vintner. Lancel stuttered. Cellar of House Lannister, from the rock. My lady mother sent a gift. Robert's punch flattened the young man, teeth spraying scarlet. Your gift spills my son's life. Barristan returned, sword red, eyes darker. The second man is dead, no sigil. Bring me a litter, Robert commanded. Now. Back at the Red Keep, chaos ignited. Maester Pycelle bled Gendry, purged him with milk of the poppy and burnt leaves of dragon pepper, claiming to draw poison. Cersei arrived, swift as a viper, demanded to see her husband, but Robert barred her. Ned Stark confronted Lancel, who claimed innocence, insisting the wine cask had been sealed with lion wax. Rumors raced faster than ravens. Gendry slain, king poisoned, Lannister plot unveiled. Small folk filled the streets, shouting for justice. Gold cloaks doubled patrols. Gendry hovered between sleep and torment. Fever ravaged his wound. Dreams twisted. He forged arrows into crowns, crowns into shackles, shackles into wolf heads, howling names he did not know. Each time he woke, Robert was there, eyes bloodshot, enormous hand wrapped around the boys. Hold, Robert begged. Don't you dare leave me too. On the third night, wails echoed through Maiden Vault corridors. Myrcella sobbed outside the sick room, Sansa Stark comforting. Tommen knelt in sept, praying to warrior and smith alike. Cersei met Tywin in her chambers. Words raw. He will live, she said. He must. Tywin studied the tapestry of Lan, the clever stealing gold from the sun. If he dies, the storm breaks beyond control. You blame me, her voice cracked. Tywin's stare was iron. I blame weakness. I do not tolerate it. He touched her cheek, cold. Do what is necessary. Secure your children. He left her with that command, walking into the hush of torches. Cersei stood very still until her handmaid found her. Then she whispered, orders swift and sharp as sword strokes. Master Pylos mixed a draught of willow bark and silverroot, forcing it between Gendry's clenched teeth. Ned watched, heart heavy. Robert paced behind, muttering prayers to gods he seldom honored sober. Suddenly Pylos, gasp. Color flushed Gendry's face. His eyes fluttered, focused. Water, Gendry rasped. Ned pressed cup to lips. The boy swallowed, coughed, but color remained. Pulse steadied. Robert exhaled a great gust of grief-turned hope. "He's past the worst," Pylos said. Tears blurred Ned's sight. Strange, after so much war, that a life so young might stay. He looked at Robert. Now the real battle begins. As dawn gilded ramparts, a horn blast sounded from the river gate. A fleet of galleys flying the crowned stag and fiery heart anchored midstream. Stannis Baratheon's standard alongside the red priest's sigil of Aralor. Their decks bristled with armored men. On the quay, townsfolk gaped. Guardsmen scrambled for position. Stannis himself disembarked, Melisandre at his side, eyes like living coals. "I come for justice," he called, "and for my brother." Within the keep, Robert strode to meet him, breastplate hastily buckled. Ned flanked him. Cersei watched from a balcony above, flanked by Jaime and a full wing of Lannister halberdiers. The great doors groaned open. Stannis advanced alone. His face, always stern, looked chiseled from grief. "You sent word you were near death," Stannis said. "Yet here you walk." "Near," Robert answered. "My son bore the wound for me." "Your son?" Stannis' eyes flicked up the stair, where Gendry leaned on Sir Barristan's arm, pale but standing. Recognition sparked. "The boy is strong, but it changes nothing." "Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, they are not yours." Gasps echoed. Jaime's hand fell to sword. Cersei's cheeks fired crimson. Robert's voice was hoarse. "We will speak in council." "No," Stannis snapped. "Truth is not wine to be watered. I proclaim it here. The king's heirs are bastards of incest, conceived by his queen and her brother. By rights of law, the crown passes to me." His gauntleted fist thumped breastplate. "Or will you dispute it before realm and gods?" Silence stretched taut as drawn bow. Then a laugh, dree, broken, escaped Robert. "Gods be damned, Stannis. Always the righteous blade." He turned, scanning faces. Ned's sorrow, Renly's shock, Cersei's fury. He looked up to Gendry. "What say you, boy? Do I have sons?" "Nah." Gendry swallowed. Pain snaked through ribs, but voice held. "I say a father is who stands beside you when death comes." "I stand, father." A tremor passed through Robert. He looked to Ned. Brother against brother, friend against friend. "This cannot be." But Melisandre lifted a hand, crimson silk rippling. "The night is dark and full of terrors," she intoned. "Only the Lord of Light may guide the righteous king." Torch flames guttered as if her words drank their breath. Jaime drew sword. "Enough. Step aside or be cut down for treason." "Non, fais de moi." "Calm, she, Kai." Barristan unsheathed in the same heartbeat. Steel, sound. Guards readied pikes. Robert's roar split the hall. "Sheathe or I'll gut the lot of you." Surprisingly, they obeyed, points lowering though hatred crackled in the air. Robert faced Stannis. "I will consider your claim, but not here, not now." He nodded to Gendry. "My son needs healing. My people need calm." Stannis' jaw clenched. "Calm buys Lannister, lies time to seed deeper. Then root them out with proof, not swords." Stannis hesitated. Melisandre laid slender fingers on his arm. "The fires show one path. Blood of kings must flow. Not today," Robert said. "And not my sons." Stannis' eyes flickered to Gendry again, calculating, measuring. and eased. He bowed stiffly. Very well, dawn tomorrow, in council. He turned on heel, cloak snapping. The Red Priestess lingered, gaze resting on Gendry as though reading some secret inscription beneath his skin. Then she followed Stannis into the glare of morning. Throughout the city, bells tolled noon, but the usual bustle whispered. Fishmongers hawked quietly. Whores leaned from windows, yet eyes tracked every rider in Baratheon or Lannister colors. Flea-bottom taverns buzzed with wagers. King's bastard versus queen's cub, stag versus lion, brothers slaughtering brothers. Surgeons prepared bandages. Baelish hosted a supper for minor lords, wagering which banner would fly over Maegor's hold fast come fortnight. Varys slipped through kitchens, spreading whispers of wildfire stores beneath the city. Best pray no spark finds them. Fear fattened his smile. In the Tower of the Hand, Ned drafted letters south to Highgarden, north to Winterfell, east to the Eyrie, urging moderation. One by one, the ravens took flight. He prayed they reached rookeries before swords left scabbards. Evening draped the capital in purple. Gendry walked the ramparts with Arya, each step slower than usual. The girl talked of Braavosi water dancers, of Nymeria's growing fangs, of Sansa's endless sighs, but eventually she asked, "Will there be war?" "I don't want one," Gendry said. "Wars don't ask what we want." He looked over the bay where Stannis' ships bobbed, lanterns glowing. "If it comes, keep your sister close. Keep your wolf closer." Arya snorted. "Nymeria protects me. Sansa has her lemon cakes." She kicked a stone into darkness. "Promise you won't let Joffrey hurt my family." Gendry met her gaze. "I promise." In the Queen's chambers, Cersei donned a gown of midnight silk. Jaime stood at the window, hair shining in candlelight. "He will side with Stannis," Cersei said, fastening a ruby earring. "Robert always bends toward guilt when confronted." "Perhaps." Jaime twirled a dagger. "We could leave tonight, sail to Casterly Rock, gather strength, and abandon the throne. The throne is not worth our children's heads." Cersei faced him, eyes bright with unshed fury. "Everything is worth our children's heads." She gripped his wrist. "Tomorrow, if Robert decides against us, you must act." Jaime's smile slipped. "Act, sister?" She pressed the dagger into his palm. "Better a kingslayer twice than a mother thrice bereaved." Jaime looked down at the blade, reflection fractured in steel. "I swore an oath." "You swore love," she whispered. "Choose." Silence swelled. Jaime closed fingers around hilt. Past midnight, Robert sat alone in the throne room, iron throne looming above like jagged night. The king held a skin of sour red, but drank sparingly. Gendry approached, steps echoing. Robert motioned him closer. "I fear I have failed you all," he murmured. "You saved me from the forge, only to melt you in greater fire." Robert barked a humorless laugh. "When I took this throne, I swore I'd build a realm where no child suffered as mine had suffered. War orphan, mother dead, father distant. Instead, I sired bastards, ignored sons, let wolves prowl my halls." Gendry rested uninjured hand on his father's massive forearm. "You can still forge good from iron." Robert studied him. "Maybe you're the smith for that." He hauled himself up, joints creaking. "Come." The throne hungers for honest weight. He guided the boy to the black steel seat. Gendry stared at twisted blades that formed arm and back, tips rusted to brown. "Legend says Aegon forged this of enemies' swords. So the singers claim." Robert gestured. "Mjolnir's down, Sit. Gendry hesitated, then lowered himself carefully, chainmail scraping. Edges bit through cloth. One nicked his thigh. Pain sharp, real. He exhaled. It's uncomfortable. Good, Robert said. Power should never grant rest. In that silent hall, father and son shared a moment unguarded by courtiers, unburdened by war-horn rumors. Torches sputtered. Outside wind rattled shutters like distant applause. I would not keep it, Gendry whispered. Pray you never must. Robert clapped his shoulder. But if you do, remember where you came from. Sweat, sparks, and stubborn iron. Rule like the smith who tempers steel. Heat, hammer, quench, repeat. Not for glory, but for use. Gendry nodded. Robert sighed, as if a weight lifted. Come, lad. Dawn's council will gut us soon enough. Best face it rested. They left the hall together, footsteps fading beyond the echo of forged swords and broken vows. At cockcrow, when pale bands of light stretched across the bay, ravens blackened the sky to the west. 12 great birds landed atop the rookery spire, croaking. Each bore a scroll sealed in black wax. Sigil of House Arryn. The rookery maester broke the first seal, eyes widening. He rushed down spiral stairs toward the Tower of the Hand just as Ned Stark was buckling sword belt. My lord, message, urgent. Trembling fingers offered parchment. Ned scanned, blood draining from his face. The message bore 3 words, the Eyrie Falls. Behind the maester, another raven fluttered, scroll dangling. Ned took that too. Lysa dead. Cold stabbed his gut. He looked to sky where more ravens wheeled, harbingers of bloody dawn. In the council chamber, the great oaken doors boomed wide. Robert entered first, crown askew, eyes red but clear. Stannis awaited, armor polished, Melisandre behind him like living flame. Cersei arrived opposite, flanked by Jaime and a column of Lannister guards. Tywin seated himself calmly at the far table, quill and parchment ready, though no invitation had been given. Renly stood to one side with Sir Loras, palms sweating. Varys and Baelish hovered like twin wraiths. Ned slipped in last, scroll tucked beneath cloak. Gendry came at Robert's side, bandaged yet steadfast. The air tasted of steel and secrets. Outside, bells tolled prime. Robert slammed the butt of his warhammer on stone, echoing finality. This council convenes to settle succession, accusations, and treachery. Speak your claims. Stannis stepped forward, voice iron. Crown is mine by law. Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen are products of incest, proof here. He tossed parchments onto table. Seals cracked open, exposing lineages, genealogy, witness testimony sworn before septons. Cersei's laugh was soft, but deadly. Forged ink and spite. My children are of royal seed. Nebu Dowry Shizami. Seed black as mine, Robert growled. Not gold. Tywin stood. House Lannister defends its blood. Any who deny shall taste lion's claw. Jaime's knuckles whitened on sword. Stannis drew Lightbringer, blade glinting red. Melisandre's song rose in Valyrian, low and haunting. Guards shifted, half stepped towards Stannis, half towards Cersei. Ned raised a hand, clutching black-sealed scroll. Before swords speak, know this. The veil has fallen. House Arryn calls banners to avenge their lady. War stirs beyond these walls already. Shock rippled through chamber. Baelish whispered, how? But answer drowned beneath roars. Robert's face contorted, torn. He looked from wife to brother to friend to son. All this for crowns forged of lies, he muttered. He turned to Gendry. Remember what I said. Power hurts. Then, to the council, he roared. Enough! I abdicate! Stunned silence. Robert continued, voice raw. I will not split realm for pride. I name peace, my heir. If you want crowns, take them. Forge a new throne of my shattered rule. But you will do it without Robert Baratheon. Num Kizalauli Tumsia. He tore the stag antler crown from his brow, hurled it upon the council table where it rattled like a thrown gauntlet. Shock anchored every man and woman, save Gendry, whose eyes shone with something like grief, and Ned, whose expression mixed relief with dread. Cersei whispered, You cannot. I just did, Robert said. He faced Stannis. If you want rule, claim the chair, but not through my corpse. He strode from the hall. Gendry followed, pausing only long enough to glance back at Arya Stark standing in the doorway, Nymeria at her heels. Their eyes met, shared understanding of broken kingdoms, before he turned after his father. Behind them, voices erupted, Stannis arguing legality, Cersei screaming treason, Tywin calling banners, Jaime drawing steel, Renly urging compromise, Varys cackling softly, Baelish smiling wider than sin. And upon the council table, the crown lay dented, one antler bent, not broken, merely waiting for a hammer, an anvil, and a hand willing to reshape the fate of kings. Wow, chérie. Die. Steel clanged against marble as Jaime Lannister's blade hissed halfway from its scabbard. Sir Barristan mirrored the motion, and for an instant, the air itself seemed to freeze between two masters poised to strike. Renly's hand flashed to his own hilt, while Loras planted a foot, ready to vault the table to his lord's side. Tywin, unmoving, allowed himself only a slow blink, as though the possibility of sudden slaughter were no more than an inconvenient draft stirring his quills. Robert's abandoned crown lay where it had landed, one antler bent, a ruby gouged loose and glittering on the floor like a coagulating drop of blood. That single lost gem fixated half the room's attention, for to reach it meant committing to one faction or another in the heartbeat before the first sword sang free. Ned judged the distance to Jaime, to Cersei, to Stannis. He saw sweat crawl along Lancel's pale brow, and wished the lad would faint rather than add one more trembling blade to an already taut moment. Gendry, still stiff-ribbed and bandaged, planted himself at Robert's shoulder, weight forward, hands open. He had no sword, yet the hall had never seen eyes larger with readiness to catch one should it fall. The heel of Stannis' boot grated stone. Jaime's thumb twitched farther along his crossguard. Barristan spoke first, voice a measured bell tone that sliced through frenzy. Stand down. The King's Guard do not draw steel on each other over words in council. Jaime's eyes never left Stannis as he eased the blade a finger width back. When words name my sister's children bastards, Sir Barristan, they cease to be mere words. Stannis answered, Truth is steelier than your oath ever was. Lightbringer's edge danced with candle fire, and its faint crimson glow painted hollows across his gaunt cheeks. Robert's bellow crashed over them all. She. Jaime yielded, the sword sliding home. Barristan followed. Stannis' weapon remained a heartbeat longer, then lowered but did not vanish. Tywin cleared his throat. This chamber has tasted enough drama. Your Grace, whether you abdicate or not, the realm demands continuity. The city is my granddaughter's cradle. I'll not see it swallowed by chaos while you brood in your wine. No. Robert rounded on him, breath hot with rage and remorse. Chaos came cowled in gold and crimson long before I hurled that crown, Lord Tywin. But you speak true. We cannot leave the lion alone at the gate. He swept the hall with his gaze. I resigned the throne, but I will not flee its shadow. We settle this in open air, before lords and commons alike, not sulk beneath painted ceilings. Ned gathered the heralds. At first light, the square before the sept of Baelor. All parties speak. Afterward, I go south to Storm's End and leave whatever council forms here to keep order, sworn on pain of my return with every stag banner in the Stormlands. Noni, Terzi, Kimi. Cersei's smile curved sharp. You assume we allow you to ride out after naming your own testimony worthless. Robert shook his head. I assume nothing. I will ride. He jabbed a thumb at his chest. And this one, he clapped Gendry's uninjured shoulder, rides beside me. Jaime's hand flexed. Not without escort. Take 100, Kingslayer. Take 1,000. I've no appetite for kingship stench, but I still wear a warrior's skin. Try the first cut, and you'll find the meat is far from spoiled. Maui, Dadiwali? Melisandre's low chuckle threaded through the hush. You mistake destiny's pull, your grace. Thrones are not abandoned. They reshape themselves around the strongest faith. Her red eyes landed on Gendry, or the hottest iron. Robert cursed under his breath and turned away. Enough of priests and prophecies. Ned, see to my orders. Stannis. If you'd rather seize the chair tonight, best call your fleet to the docks and make your push. Otherwise, abide. Stannis' jaw locked, but after a tense moment, he inclined his head. Till dawn then, let the realm hear. He strode out with Melisandre gliding behind, crimson skirts licking the marble like spilled fire. One by one, others withdrew, Renly whispering urgings of caution to Loras, Varys drifting ghost silent, Baelish flashing Ned a fox's grin before slipping into the corridor. Jaime lingered near Cersei, whose eyes tracked Robert and Gendry until the last echo faded. Tywin gathered his parchments. You forget, Robert, that storms rage, whether or not a drunken sailor drops the tiller. I advise you, grip your soba tomorrow. Now, Nelly. Robert answered only with a grunt as he headed for the doors. Gendry followed, Ned at his other shoulder, feeling as though they stepped from council into the teeth of a gale no mortal could tackle. Wind skirled around the Tower of the Hand's parapet, where Ned found Arya perched on the crenellation, boots dangling above the moonlit courtyard. He told himself to chide her for danger, but found no voice. The chill air already clung heavy with potential grief. She glanced up at the soft footfall. Was it swords? Not yet. They'll come soon. He sat beside her. You sound certain. Nymeria can smell it. Horses get restless the night before a slaughter. So do men. She bit her lip. Will we ride home? I hope we ride north, only after peace is signed. Arya scraped mortar with a thumbnail. If Gendry leaves with the king, does that make him safe? Or make him a target on the road? Both, Ned answered. Sometimes they are the same. He remembered another boy riding south from Winterfell years past, dark of hair, eager and kind. The boy Robert once was, before victory calcified to disappointment. He wondered whether Gendry would weather heartbreak better or worse than his father. Can I see him? Arya asked suddenly. Before he leaves. You may try, though he and the king prepare through the night. Ned climbed down, ruffling her hair. Keep your sword close, little wolf. Needles always close. Downstairs, Ned's steward awaited with sharpened quills, lists of outriders, muster counts from the city watch, sympathetic to Baratheon loyalty. Ned scanned, signed, sealed. From Gulltown to Tumbleton, rumors rode faster than ravens. By dawn, half the realm might converge on the Sept Square. He paused at the last parchment, a letter to Catelyn. He added a single line, trust only the North's honor, not the crown's whim, then sealed it with a lump of yellow wax pressed by the direwolf sigil. Gendry leaned over the map table in his chamber, tracing roads south. Every movement tugged stitches, but he ignored pain. Forging daily beside screaming iron taught him to file hurt away like burrs on hot steel. Robert loomed at the window, polishing a warhammer that had split countless skulls from the trident to pike. He oiled the metal with slow, reverent strokes. "Father," Gendry began, "what if tomorrow the mob crowns Stannis, regardless of what we say? What if they cheered Joffrey out of fear of Lannister blades? Then I ride anyway." Robert set the hammer down. "Storm's End is our rock. I'll gather my bannermen, beat the war drums they love, and march back when the snows melt if need be." Gendry shook his head. "You're done with war." Robert's laugh was bitter. "That can never truly be done with rot, boy. Antlers grow back, but you said yourself pride forged this strife. If you carve fresh wounds, will they heal cleaner?" Robert studied him with eyes dark as cast shadows. A smile ghosted, the pride of seeing wisdom where once he expected obedience. "When did my boy turn maester?" Gendry flattened the map. "I apprentice to heat and pain. Teaches faster than scrolls." "No. As you I." Robert stepped closer, pulled a pouch from his belt. Inside lay the bent antler crown. "A king should rule from iron stronger than this." He pressed it into Gendry's hands. "Find a forge at Storm's End. Mend it." The metal was cold, yet it seemed to throb as though still alive with fury. Gendry felt the heft of responsibility heavier than any maul. "And if I can't?" Robert clasped his shoulder. "Then you make a new one. But remember, a crown that never cuts its wearer grows complacent. Leave one tooth sharp." He winked. "Keep the skull honest." Before the sky paled, columns of soldiers in crownlands livery formed silent lines along Visenya's hill. Some bore spears cut from dock pilings, others halberds polished bright as mirrors. The gold cloaks, uncertain which master they served, patrolled in pairs rather than tens, wary of ambush by kin. Under torches, faces looked half-carved from orange stone, hard and anxious. The plaza before the great sept brimmed by first light. Hawkers ignored orders to stay home, selling oatcakes and watered wine to peasants who staked vantage on balconies or roof tiles. The hush before storm crackled down every marble stair. Robert arrived mounted on a black courser, Ned and Barristan flanking, Gendry behind on a dappled mare more muscle than grace. Bells pealed as they passed, not quite joyous, not quite mournful. Every clang measured the distance between loyalty and revolt. On the sept's wide steps stood 3 banners, crowned stag on gold for Robert, fiery heart and stag for Stannis, lion on crimson for Joffrey. Joffrey himself perched beneath his sigil, crown of polished spines freshly wrought, cloak sewn with pearls. Cersei beside him looked the very statue of regal contempt. Jaime in white stood guard, and Lannister halberdiers lined the balustrade like teeth inside a gaping jaw. Stannis waited beneath his own banner, jaw locked, Melisandre half a step behind, her ruby throbbing like a silent heartbeat. Seated upon a gilded chair borrowed from the sept treasury was the High Septon, a wavering tower of dove-white silk. Robert dismounted. Silence rippled outward like lead poured on water. He stepped forward, raised a hand. "I stand here no longer king, but as Robert Stormborn, once Lord of Storm's End, defender of the realm against those who threatened it. I renounce claim to that iron throne behind these walls. Let the gods judge who sits it next, not my sword." Gasps, cheers from some, curses from others. Cersei stepped up, voice ringing. "The crown is Joffrey's by right of birth, and by your own anointment years past. Your abdication cannot sever blood. Bend the knee and affirm him." Robert looked to Joffrey, saw the boy's eyes glimmer with triumph and terror. "A king's worth lies deeper than gold ink on parchment," Robert said. "I see my likeness in this lad beside me more than I ever saw in you, golden cub. Yet I do not name him heir either. I leave choice to the realm." He turned to the High Septon. "Shall we ask the seven, cast lots, unveil auguries, or shall we war as men prefer?" The Septon's lips trembled. Before he answered, Stannis' sword scraped stone as it planted. "Law is clearer than incense smoke. Joffrey's bastardy voids his claim. By line of birth, I stand next." He unrolled parchment, reading bloodless citations of precedents. Targaryen succession after Maegor, Baratheon charters post-Durrandon, grand councils that weighed legitimacy by marital bed. Crowd murmured as if lulled by stern clarity. Cersei laughed, cold and sweet. "Paint your lineage in the sky. If this city's hearts beat for Joffrey, they will fight for him. Law without swords is old ink." Renly strode from the Watchers, green cloak swirling. "If hearts choose, perhaps they choose color over salt water." He spread arms to the masses. "Who here would have dour justice when you might have spring?" He gestured to Gendry, "or summer's new forge." Shouts rose, confused, excited, angry. Peasants voiced Gendry like a novelty stall. Merchants cried, "Joffrey, out of fear of debt." Smiths, washerwomen, sellswords chanted, "Robert," reflexively. The plaza shook with cacophony. Ned stepped up, drawing no blade but holding Robin Arryn's letter aloft. "Lords, while you quarrel, the veil burns. Lady Lysa dead. A knife in the night, her young son vanished. Who here cast that dagger? Not Storm's End, not Dragonstone, not Casterly Rock. Yet it flew while we brooded. Nay." His voice boomed into stillness. "If you believe any one banner will save you from the rot, you blind yourselves. The realm needs counsel, not crowns. Form a great council in the Dragon Pit, old as conquest. Gather every lord and free city envoy. Let them rule on heirs." Stannis' mouth curdled. "Council stalls justice," Cersei hissed. "A council invites every petty ambition to the table." Renly smiled. "But it spares the small folk swords to scull." Tywin stepped forward at last, walking down steps as though the marble awaited his foot. "I support Lord Eddard's proposal. I will host my armies at the Gold Road passes, not advance, until such council votes. If any man marches against King's Landing before then, they march against the Rock." Thunder of surprise echoed. Even Jaime's eyebrows rose. Cersei hissed, "Father." He silenced her with a glance. "The Rock has lost much to vanity already." He faced Robert. "Can you agree to peace while council forms?" Robert murmured to Ned, then bellowed, "I swear storms, and will not bear arms first." Eyes shifted to Stannis. His lips compressed. Melisandre murmured, but he raised a hand. "Very well. The Lord of Light does not fear councils. Our strength remains sheathed for now." The High Septon, shaking, declared the council convened under Seven's blessing 1 moon hence. Bells tolled to mark the pact. Across the plaza, tension slackened like a bow released but not unstrung. Lannister guards exhaled. Stormlanders beat shields in measured salute. Stannis sailors stamped, impatient but restrained. Yet peace, like iron too hastily quenched, was brittle from its birth. Gendry sensed it in the eyes that trailed him as he remounted beside Robert. Suspicion, resentment, the raw hunger of those denied easy glory. That night, Varys visited Ned Solar, bearing sugared plums and darker news. Lord Stark, while the banners nod toward council, knives sharpen in alleys. Half the city swears the spider weaves for Stannis, half that he spins for the queen. None guess I dine on both rumors like honeycomb. Ned studied the eunuch. "You come to warn or bargain. A warning tastes sweeter when the listener values the cook." Varys placed a plum on Ned's ledger. "Our queen has dispatched Sir Meryn with 50 gold cloaks to the Street of Steel. They seek the boy's friends, family, any relics proving his mother's name." If they cannot prove false parentage, they will salt the ground where proof might yet bloom. Ned's jaw tensed. Tobomat's folk sheltered me in pursuit of truth. I owe them safety. Then send riders swift, Varys said. But understand, every sword drawn in secret strikes at the council you called for. Blood dripping onto parchment smears the fairest seal. He bowed out like a silken shadow. Ned summoned 24 of his own guard, Northmen lean and deadly, and dispatched them in plain cloaks to escort the smiths beyond the walls. Robert and Gendry departed the capital at dawn 3 days later, amidst a procession the size of a modest host. 200 Stormlander men-at-arms, banners stiff in autumn wind, flanked a wagon of maesters and leeches for Gendry's still tender wound. A score of Kingsguard under Baratheon, cloaks shifting between gold and white, depending on who watched. Arya, disguised as a page, slipped among grooms to wave silent farewell to Sansa weeping on the balcony. Ned watched from the gate, mind a tangle of relief and apprehension. Cersei did not see them off. Joffrey stood on the barbican, crown gleaming, lips pressed thin. Jaime at his side looked out over city rooftops, rather than at the departing column. Renly had already ridden west toward Highgarden to court the Tyrell host. Stannis' fleet lurked in Blackwater, prows biting current like chained hounds. Tywin pulled back Lannister outriders to the Riverlands, but ravens whispered that smiths hammered night and day within the rock's forges. Gendry's mare clopped beside Robert's stallion as the city dwindled behind dust. He inhaled open air, fewer smells of tallow and fear, and felt stitches loosen with each breath. Robert rode silent until the towers faded, then spoke. "You think that pact will hold? Glass thicker than most." Gendry wiped sweat. "But glass all the same." Robert nodded grimly. "Storm's End has old hearths. We'll plan by firelight." They made camp the second night near Hayford Castle. Stars spilled across sky clear as polished steel. Crickets throbbed in tall grass. Gendry sat by embers, crown in lap, hammer borrowed from the farrier. He pressed bent antler against heated iron slab, tapping gentle until ruby socket realigned. Pain flared in his ribs each stroke, like the crown fought its own repair. Footsteps crunched. Barristan approached, helm tucked beneath arm. Late hour for smithing. The metal cools slower at night. Gendry straightened. "Or so my master claimed." Barristan squatted, lines of age etched by fire glow. "King's too cool in darkness. Best keep a furnace near." Gendry eyed the old knight. "Do you believe Stannis' claim?" "I believe honor is seldom clear as forge fire. I served Aerys, honor-bound. I serve Robert, honor-bound. Should council crown another, I will serve them, honor-bound." None, she, even Joffrey. Barristan's gaze flickered. "I swore." Gendry drove the hammer point into earth. "Honor that blinds becomes cage." "True," Barristan whispered. "Yet I was forged in that cage, and shape cannot be unmade without shattering." He rose. "Do not envy the old steel, my lord. Become new alloy stronger yet." He left. Gendry turned the crown. Stars mirrored in gold like eyes judging his resolve. On the third morning, scouts returned breathless. Lannister outriders harried the Gold Road, seeking to delay any Stormlander entry to the Reach. Robert cursed, kicked his horse into a gallop, and the column veered southeast through hill country. They reached the Mander Valley by dusk, only to find Fellwood Bridge shattered, the timbers burned to char. On the far bank glittered helms and spears. A detachment in crimson, 300 strong, blocking passage. Robert spurred forward till the water lapped his boot. "Cross." Ser Adam Marbrand raised a hand. "Orders from Lord Tywin. No army crosses into Reach lands till council stands." Robert's laughter cracked like thunder. "This host is less than Highgarden's orchard guard, and you dam the river with it." Let me pass, and word will reach your lord that Robert honors his truce. Block me, and you break it first." Marbrand's eyes narrowed. "Repair the bridge. Swear you'll encamp short of Bitterbridge, and you may pass unarmed." "Unarmed?" Robert spat. "These men are my shield." Behind Robert, Barristan waded his horse a step forward. "Sir Adam, do not shame the King's Guard by confidence in timber fire. Let our sorely wounded prince cross to heal." Gendry felt every eye shift to him. He sat tall despite throbbing ribs. "Sir Adam, I carry no grudge. Let bloodless law stand." Marbrand conferred with his officers, faces shadowed beneath helms. Finally, he raised a horn. 3 blasts, the signal for parley. Crimson spears lowered. Work crews dragged planks and rope. Robert exhaled through beard. "Smart pup, that horsetail lion." By midday next, the bridge stood anew. Robert's column filed across, weapons sheathed, shields slung behind. Sir Adam saluted as they passed, though his eyes lingered on the bent-heeled crown at Gendry's saddle. Beyond, green fields unfurled toward the blue smudge of Storm's End's distant cliff. The smell of salt road wind as sure as omen. Gendry felt longing sharpen with every mile. Home that had never welcomed him yet recognized him as son before he breathed its stone-salt air. They arrived at dusk of the 5th day. Storm's End reared black against roiling clouds, buttressed by sea that hammered rock like an endless assault. Torches gleamed atop battlements, horns greeted their approach. Deep, booming notes that reminded Gendry of forge bellows exhaling sparks into night. Within the great hall, bannermen knelt. Lord Penrose, Arstan Selmy of Greenstone, House Dondarrion's steward bearing Beric's colors, for Beric rode north on mission for Ned weeks prior. Ale flowed, venison steamed. But beneath the joy of reunion, there simmered questions of throne, council, war. Robert refused the high seat, choosing a bench near hearth. Gendry sat beside him, crown hidden in satchel. Maesters redressed his wound, nodding approval, promising full strength by fortnight. As moon climbed, lords took turns pledging swords to whatever path Robert chose. Peace council, war council, abdication, or reclamation. Each pledge contradicted the last, until the hall drowned in argument. Robert slept where he sat, cup cradled like shield. Gendry slipped away, climbed spiral stairs to battlements. Sea wind slapped his face, harsh and brine-rich. Far below, surf exploded against the wall. He breathed deep, letting salt sting open the scab of fear. He imagined the world's crowns falling from the sky like embers, some snuffed in sea, others burning till they branded flesh forever. Footsteps, soft, deliberate. Gendry turned to see Renly emerging from stair shadow, cloak snapping. "Word travels," Renly said. "Lannister outriders cross the Tumblestone at dawn, heading east. If they turn south, your home finds siege before winter." Gendry clenched rampart. So soon? Tywin's patience thins when others set terms. Renly leaned beside him. "Highgarden prepares host. They will not fight for lions. They might fight for stag, if that stag bears a rose's favor." "None should see." Gendry frowned. "You." Renly's smile glittered. Storm's End and Highgarden united could outnumber red and gold. A council that sees such alliance may choose the younger brother over the elder. He placed a hand on Gendry's satchel. "Or a fresh Baratheon entirely, one untainted by old grudges." Gendry stepped back. "You'd thrust kingship on me." "Why not? The small folk cheer your name. Smiths forge trinkets with your sigil. You're the anvil where realm's hopes are hammered." Renly's voice softened. "Think on it. When council convenes, votes break along lines of fear and love. Fear crowns Stannis, love crowns you. And ambition crowns you, Gendry said. Renly laughed low. I never denied appetite. He offered a scroll, sealed with a green wax rose. When you decide, send this token. The Tyrells will open gates to. He left the scroll on the parapet stone, turned, descended. The seal's scent of crushed mint stirred memories Gendry never had. Orchard summers, courtly tourneys, distant from grime of flea bottom. He tucked it into belt, unsure why. 2 nights later, thunder shook towers. Robert summoned lords to war chamber, where flames leapt along a table-sized map of the Stormlands and Crownlands coast. Scouts reported Lannister galleys sailing from Driftmark, banners blacked by night. Another raven warned Stannis' fleet weighed anchor, rowers ready. The truce rattled like rotten timber. Robert gripped table edge. If lions cage King's Landing before council, they will claim city by default. Stannis pounds from sea. Tyrells may hedge, and I'll be caged in my own keep. He slammed a fist. I must ride now, rally Stormlanders, break the siege before it locks. Penrose objected. The council date stands. Any advance breaks oath. Oath already phrase. Robert spat. Better tear a rotten sail than let wind shred it uncontrolled. Barristan spoke softly. We could send a vanguard under Lord Selmy while main host follows. Enough to relieve small folk, not to seize. Robert weighed, then nodded. At dawn, Gendry rides with vanguard. His wound mended enough, and his presence stays swords. To Gendry, will you go? Gendry answered. If storm breaks, best meet it head on. Ned, standing near the hearth, stiffened. I came to oversee council. If war ignites while I hide in city smoke, I break my own call for calm. He laid hand on Robert's forearm. Let me ride presently to King's Landing, parley with Tywin, remind him of his vow. Robert's eyes searched his oldest friend. After a long pause, he clasped Ned's wrist. Ride then, but beware lion dens. Nandri. Thus plans formed. Yet plans never account for midnight blades. That same hour, shriek of horn split the keep. Gendry raced from chamber, crown bouncing inside tunic. In the outer bailey, torches swirled. 3 bodies sprawled near stables. Guardsmen throats slit. Hoofbeats thundered. A dark rider burst from gate, dragging reins of Robert's stallion. Barristan shouted order. Arrows whistled. One struck flank. The horse stumbled, but regained pace. Gendry sprinted, ribs screaming, vaulted water trough, seized a fallen spear. He hurled, the shaft whirred silent, then thunked into rider's shoulder. Horse reared, man toppled, cloaked in black. Soldiers pounced. Gendry ripped cloak aside. The assassin wore no sigil, but his armor bore a faint emboss of golden lion rosettes deliberately scratched. Beneath helm, eyes already glazing. The killer tried to spit blood, but only a bubble formed. He whispered, Lord. Robert arrived, hammer raised, saw body, saw spear, looked to Gendry. Pride and fear warred across his face. They want me trapped here, he breathed. Or dead. Gendry stared at lifeless eyes. What about you? Robert shook head. A message. They knew the spear would find him. They knew you'd be here. They wish you to see the cost of following me. Lightning shattered sky. Rain hammered stone. Gendry wiped water from brow. Then we ride quicker. At dawn, shrouded by rain, Ned rode northeast with a dozen guard. Gendry watched him go, feeling like each departing ally tore fringe from his cloak. Robert's vanguard formed beneath flags of dread sky, leather dripping. The king pressed a hand to Gendry's chest. Storm's distant roar is nothing, son. Thunder at your heels, that's the sound to mind. They departed across slick turf, avoiding main King's Road, following forest tracks to bypass watchers. Barristan led 600 cavalry. Gendry centered among them. Mud sprayed, Hooves sucked, hearts drummed. On the third March night, they reached the mouth of the Wendwater, great bog where fog clutched reeds like pale fingers. Barristan halted, scouts returning shaken, lion banners ahead, campfires hidden under canvas to choke smoke. 1,000 at least, maybe 2, waiting along river ford. Barristan's plan: find west along marsh edge, draw pursuit, send Gendry and lighter riders east to cross at shallows. Gendry mounted, any doubt hammered flat by need. Mist swallowed everything beyond spear's tip. Hooves sloshed. Somewhere steel clashed muffled as thunder distant. Gendry guided mare through knee-deep water, breath clouding. Another rider, young Lord Caron, met his flank. Keep true north, Caron whispered. Out of the fog loomed shapes. 3, no. Gendry raised hand. Friend or foe? They answered with arrow shafts. One grazed his helm, ringing ears. Caron screamed, toppled sideways. Gendry spurred. His small escort followed into reeds, weaving between half-submerged logs. More arrows hissed, but fog and water hinder aim. They burst onto firmer bank, galloped into low farmland. Ahead, a hamlet's thatch roofs loomed, smoke thin from chimneys. Gendry signaled halt. 8 riders left of 20. We circle back once dark, find where Barristan breaks through. A farmer emerged, eyes wide at muddy stags. Gendry tossed a silver stag. Idled these mounts behind barn, speak of this to none. He turned to his men. Rest an hour, then we ride. Lightning flashed, and for an instant he saw Tyrell green banners far across fields, moving south. His chest tightened. Renly's envoy? Or scouts? 1 hour later, they rode toward that distant flicker of green. But as they closed, they saw not Tyrell roses, but a clever ruse. Lion banners over green-dyed canvases, flapping as troops rearranged. Gendry cursed. An ambush bracketed them. Lannister crossbowmen atop hedgerows, spear line blocking lane. He wheeled. Break, left into orchard. Arrows thudded. A man fell. Gendry and 3 survivors crashed through apple rows, ducking low branches. Spears jutted ahead. More lions. Only one path, a break in hedge toward a sunken lane. Gendry drove twitching mare. They burst free, hooves slipping on damp chalk. The lane curved, funneled between high banks. Figures dropped into path, armored, crimson. A horn bleated, short victory note. Gendry swung sword, parried a spear, slashed. His wound tore inside, but he fought on. Knuckles raw, mind blank. Thunderous hoofbeats behind. Then Barristan's white cloak appeared with a wedge of Stormlander cavalry, smashing Lannister flank. The lane became maelstrom, shouts, steel, flying mud. Gendry saw Barristan Dulce Adam Mabran, sparks dancing. He cut down an archer, grabbed fallen banner, raised falcon crest of house. Caron, despite personal stag. Stormlanders rallied to symbol of their lost comrade. They pushed, hacking, shrieking. Marbrand is engaged. Horn sounded retreat. Lions peeled away, melting into orchard and fog. Barristan's horse reared, mane laced red. When quiet came, it felt deafening. 30 stormmen lay dead, twice wounded. Gendry slid from saddle, legs trembling. Barristan dismounted, clasped his arm. You held. Barely. Gendry knelt beside Caron's body. The young lord's eyes stared at bruise-gray sky. He closed them, whispering promise to tell his kin. Barristan eyed horizon. West flank is lost. We must ride hard night and day to reach capital before siege ring completes. Gendry nodded, adrenaline fading to chill. He looked at tattered makeshift banner now slick with rain. He thrust it to a squire. Carry until we carve a new one. King's Landing awoke to panic 2 days later, as bells clanged invasion. Stannis' fleet swept up the Blackwater, sails red in dawn blaze. Lannister troops manned walls. Wildfire jars lined parapets. Joffrey atop battlements shouted dire warnings of traitors and heretics. Inside Red Keep, Cersei convened lords to crown Joffrey officially. No waiting council, claiming Robert's abdication final. Pycelle produced a decree, signed and sealed naming Joffrey heir. Varys quietly noted the signature bled too fresh to be days old, but none heeded. As Tywin's heavy columns approached from the west, Queen's Gate swung open to admit gold-bannered host. Thunder of hooves filling streets. Small folk fled into cellars. Septi bells tolled again, this time not alarm but funeral. Ned, having ridden day and night, arrived at the river gate as Stannis' galleys bombarded. He forced his weary horse through throngs toward the keep, brandishing stark sigil for passage. In Maegor's holdfast courtyard, he found Tywin preparing council. Gray with fatigue, Ned dismounted. "You vowed no host before council," he rasped. Tywin removed gloves. "And I kept vow. My men camped beyond walls. This host belongs to King Joffrey." None. Ned's stomach dropped. "He crowns himself this instant." "Cersei crowns him. The boy may squeal." Tywin's gaze hardened. The realm needs certainty before Stannis levels these walls. Trumpets blared. Ned saw new banners raised. Stag crowned within lion's maw. Joffrey's personal sigil. His heart sank like stone through ice water. Meanwhile, Gendry's ragged riders reached the North Road overlook. Gazing down at Sea Dragon Gate ringed by Lannister pikes, Stannis' ships lobbed casks of burning pitch into docks. Fire-painted sky. Baratheon surveyed. "If we charge riverside, we die." Gendry wiped grime. "We ride east, find Smuggler's Cove, slip into city by night." A scout pointed to sails hugging coast, emerald roses of Highgarden. Gendry's breath caught. Renly? Or Tyrell alone? Banner signaled. Green tape tied to rosemast. Prearranged code for alliance. Gendry slid from saddle, leveraged spyglass. He saw Loras Tyrell at prow, gold-rimmed helm glinting. Hope flared like forged spark. "They come for us." Barristan smiled thinly. "Then let us be where we must when gate opens." They rode hard to river mouth, signaled with Caron banner. Tyrell outriders met them, guided to hidden beach where longboats waited. Gendry boarded, crown and satchel, heart pounding. Loras clasped his hand. Storm and rose together. Renly stepped forward from shadows of sail. The council delayed. The throne usurped. "Let's correct that." Gendry stared at brothers. One blood, one ambition, both paths laden with peril. He produced Robert's repaired crown, edges now honed, ruby restored. "Names and crowns mean little if city burns tonight," he said. "We fight first for lives. After flames doused, we forge peace." Renly's grin bloomed. "Spoken like a king." Gendry shook head. "Spoken like a smith who hates melted iron wasted." He clutched rail as longboat surged toward blaze-lit walls. Within the Red Keep, Cersei's coronation concluded just as thunder of ram-battered King's Gate. Stannis men landing troops. She ordered wildfire pots rolled to parapets. Jaime marshaled Kingsguard at Barbican. War. Tywin commanded crossbow companies to high towers. Ned forced entry to throne room, swords of his guard held at bay by gold cloaks, but not slain. Jaime allowed passage out of curiosity. He strode across hall where Joffrey perched upon iron spikes, crown askew. "Your Grace," Ned said, "the council promised by all high lords now lies broken. Step down till peace restored." Joffrey's face purpled. "You dare. I'll have your head." Cersei placed hand on boy's shoulder. "Sir Jaime, arrest Lord Stark for treason." Jaime hesitated, golden head tilting, as though he heard whisper none else caught. Then he drew sword. A crash shook hall. Side door burst as men in Tyrell green and Storm's End blue flooded corridor. Baratheon in white strode at front, helm dented, sword dripping. Behind him came Renly and Loras, and in their midst, Gendry, hair plastered with sweat and smoke, eyes blazing. The hall erupted, steel unsheathed, screams, shouts. Jaime turned, recognized Baratheon's stance, met it. Swords clashed, Kingslayer versus living legend. Tywin shouted for order, but thunder drowned him. The roof trembled as Stannis' trebuchets pounded outer wall. Cersei dragged Joffrey toward rear exit. Ned darted to intercept. Kingsguard hound blocked, but Arya somehow slipped with Caravan, lunged from behind tapestry, slashing with needle. Sandor caught thin blade in gauntlet, growled admiration. Gendry advanced toward throne steps, Robert's crown in fist. Lannister gods bowed, but Tyrell spearmen locked shields before him. Joffrey, seeing him, shrieked, "No bastard takes my chair." He shoved from Cersei, snatched crossbow from guard, loosed. Bolt hissed, aim wild, clanged off throne, ricochet, buried in marble at Gendry's feet. Time slowed. Smoke curled through shattered windows. Bells tolled ruinously. Gendry bent, retrieved bolt, snapped shaft, cast aside. Thrones aren't taken. His voice carried miracle calm. They're earned. He lifted crown. Each point caught firelight. All fell to hush, as if even battle paused. "I claim nothing," he declared, "but I stand here a Baratheon, trueborn of Robert's blood, offering counsel of unity. Lannister, Tyrell, Stark, Baratheon, Tully, Martell. Let tomorrow choose its ruler. Tonight choose survival. Tonight choose survival." Barristan broke Jaime's parry, blade at throat, but held. Jaime, chest heaving, met Old Knight's gaze, and astonishingly lowered sword. Tywin, seeing his son yield, raised hand. Crossbows slackened. Stannis' booming voice echoed from shattered doors. He had breached hall with Red Priestess in tow. He saw Gendry, crown raised, host stilling, his eyes rimmed crimson rage. But Melisandre stepped forward, regard shadowed. The Lord of Light purifies through fire. Tonight he shows who burns for realm, who burns it. She gestured to Gendry, a king who forges peace in flame. Stannis' sword dipped. So many eyes turned to him. The decision, pivot. He rasped, counsel then, judgment at Dragon Pit 7 days. Cersei screamed, "No!" But Tywin's hand closed on her arm, iron. Ned helped Arya to feet, her face smeared with soot, but fierce. Gendry lowered crown, eyes sting with smoke and tears unshed. The throne loomed behind, iron cold, as though waiting. But he did not climb. Instead, he walked to Ned Stark, pressed crown into his grasp. "God, they still council convenes. A smith's hands belong on hammers, not relics." Ned, trembling, accepted. "You place trust in me. Trust is metal stronger than swords when tempered by honor," Gendry answered. And in the cavernous hall of broken oaths, men who moments before sought each other's throats now stood, uncertain, wary, but breathing the fragile air of a peace not yet born. Forged in stormfire, on the anvil of a bastard's courage,